Brian Flores took a different approach than many of us have seen before. Very reminiscent of Roger Staubach.
Yeah, so we can compare a rookie QB to a toddler.
So that's why I have the Mavs winning in 7, and then Luka's just going to be Luka.
Hayward's absence for this game will be significant, and I wouldn't be surprised if this game turns into a blowout as of late.
The Golden Knights just can't pull it. I really think the Avalanche are determined this year.
They made so many moves and grabbed so many guys that they have to win a championship or at least make the finals. They were on our championship and bust.
Dallas has just been on a tear. I believe we can attribute that to Jason Robertson. Also, Jake Ottinger, who's really stepped in.
Kaprizov and the rest of this crew. Jordan Greenway, who doesn't get enough props. He definitely is somebody who needs to be mentioned more. I definitely think this is going to be a great series, and I'm interested to see how much Kaprizov can impact the game as a rookie.
Yeah, and as a Cowboys fan, I have learned how dangerously good Aaron Rodgers has been with he can just thread a pass.
Is the Avalanche versus the Blues. I believe the Blues are starting to play some of their best hockey all year, and so they can push this to 6 games.
If Leiter's there, I'm happy with Leiter because I think he fits into what you were saying about a much quicker thing. But if Leiter's not there, which is seeming so, I say Jordan Lawler at number 2.
The same self. The only year he won an MVP was the year he cheated, which really should put something against that MVP. But
there will be a Rodgers playing for Green Bay, even though he may not be the quarterback. But it's still unknown there. Austin is giving me the dead stare, so I guess don't mention Aaron Rodgers to him right now.
A top 3 corner in the league in Jair Alexander, and pairing him with a really fast corner should definitely assist in their ability to guard anybody in their division and anybody in the league.
Hello, I am Ruby Ackerman, and you are listening to Outsider's Opinion with Kevin and Austin.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our 85th episode. Make sure to check out our last episode where we tried to predict some trades that would happen on the deadline before the end of the MLB Trade Deadline, if y'all were confused. But the NBA draft just happened. There are some trades, but we're going to look over the first round, and let's go over the first pick, where the Pistons selected Cade Cunningham, and this seemed like a surefire pick. What do you think about this?
Yeah, 100%. There was no doubt in anybody's mind, really, that Cade would fall. Some people thought that Jalen Green may sneak his way up the boards and go number 1, but I never really saw it coming to fruition, and it definitely, as we got closer to the draft, it didn't seem like it was going to. Cade's an outstanding prospect, and many people were comparing him to Luka, which I do think hinders him a little bit. Let Cade be Cade. But he's an outstanding pickup, and I think the Pistons will do right by him.
Yeah, I think a lot of people give those comparisons out because Cade admires Luka. So he models some part of his game, but just because he's 6'8" and a guard who can play on the ball. But a key thing that I think that's different from Luka is he can play off the ball as well. And we saw him doing that more at Oklahoma State. We haven't seen Luka in the NBA play off ball, so that's why I say that. Any more thoughts?
Yeah, I think part of that is because Luka doesn't really have another primary ball handler on his team. We're never really going to see that unless we get another consistent star guard paired with Luka. But Cade is also, he grew up in the Arlington area right next to Dallas. So I think that's another reason why he's compared. He grew up in the same area where right now Luka plays. He was still in high school when Luka was already drafted. So I understand why they make those comparisons. But I do think that comparisons can hurt somebody, as if you say that they're going to be like this and then when they're not exactly like that, it makes people think they're worse off. But because we've seen some predictions where guys are like compared, like a player's compared to Chris Bosh, which was Evan Mobley. And I don't really know if Evan Mobley is going to be Chris Bosh. We'll get to that when we get to the pick, and I'll elaborate more. But yeah.
Yeah, let's move on. Now we go to the Houston Rockets pick where they select Jalen Green, who did not play in college. He signed with the G League Ignite, and it worked out. So it's an unconventional way. And so many people believe it's a realistic goal that he can be the rookie of the year. What do you think about Jalen Green, Austin?
Yeah, I love this pick. Jalen Green, they compared him to Bradley Beal, and I understand the comparison more here because he is a mid-range scorer who can get his own shots up, but he also is very athletic, just like Beal. And he's a player that I definitely think will help the Rockets rebuild faster than if they would have picked up a guy like Evan Mobley, especially because I feel like guards in this league now can accelerate a success of a team earlier than centers. We saw Nikola Jokic; he took more time to develop. We've seen guys like Marvin Bagley, who was recently picked, even DeAndre Ayton. It takes more for a center to come into the league and immediately lead the team to success. So I love this pick. Jalen Green, I think, will be a solid rookie this year, and I would not be surprised if, like you said, he won Rookie of the Year.
Now we can move on to what you're alluding to, Evan Mobley. I think you have to pick him because best player available. And unless you have already traded um, Colin Sexton, then you can go for a guard. But I think Mobley fits because he's a great 7 footer and he can shoot the three while also being the post. But the problem is Jared Allen. They had traded for Jared Allen. They were part of that Nets trade with Houston, right? Or was it just
The
in
the trade
conjunction?
was with the Nets and Houston. It was a 3-team trade.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah,
I couldn't remember. I was thinking of the Karis
Jared
LeVert
Allen
trade
came
for
from
the
the Nets,
Pacers.
but the
Yeah, I know he
Rockets
came
were
from
included.
that.
Yeah.
I just couldn't figure out which one it was part of. So thanks. But he's also a restricted free agent. So maybe it gives them an insurance if, let's say, the Mavs go after Jared Allen, or I think the Hornets were also interested. But so that gives them another thing, and Mobley can shoot the three. But what are your thoughts on this pick?
I was wrong. I didn't even have to look this up. I just remembered it was a 4-team trade. The Victor Oladipo was sent to Houston in this deal, so it was a 4-team trade between the Pacers, Cavs, Rockets, and Nets. I just don't know why I said 3-team trade. I knew it was a 4-team trade, but yeah, Mobley seems like a guy who's going to be more defensive. I know he can develop a 3-point shot, but I don't think it'll be as good as Bosch, who was really a good 3-point shooter. Um, I see him being a prolific inside scorer, paint scorer who can shoot every once in a while as a three. I know like Carl Anthony Towns. I don't think he's going to be like him. Not only do I think he's a better defender than Carl Anthony Towns, but I feel like Cat relies a lot on his jump shot to get points. Yeah, I don't feel like that's going to be the case as much with Mobley. I really like Mobley on the defensive side of the ball. Also, he in college he was a prolific shot blocker, and I really think that'll also help him early on in his career. While he may not be scoring as much, you can't teach length, so that'll definitely help the Cavs. And while I may not have chosen him because of Jared Allen, and I love Jared Allen's prospect, if I was going to take him, I would probably trade Jared Allen now to get not only help him in his career, but also get something back to help in the short term with Evan Mobley and obviously Darius Garland, Colin Sexton, all the young players. I maybe would have picked up another power forward probably. Trade away maybe Kevin Love and uh, Jared Allen in like a package deal or something.
That's an excellent point. Quick off the hand, how many blocks did Evan Mobley average in college?
I saw what he averaged during the tournament, but I don't know what he averaged over college. 3.4?
No, lower,
2.7.
higher.
3.1.
No, lower,
3.
lower.
2.9.
Yes, and then do you want to guess what his career high was? How many blocks?
8.
Close, lower,
7.
lower.
6.
Yeah, 6. So just to your point of how he's a great shot blocker. Yeah, I definitely think, given this pick, I think Jared Allen is likely on his way out, just because probably costs more money, and that's what the rumors are about them trading Sexton. They don't want to pay him. I think that's correct, right?
Uh, yeah, it's a confusing situation. I don't really know what they're gonna do.
Yeah. So that was just how I was hearing, but I think we can move on to now number 4. The Raptors select Scotty Barnes, who played for Florida State. And I am not surprised by the pick. I'm more surprised by that the Raptors stayed and they didn't trade out of this because maybe they want to stay in contention or they're kind of in the rebuilding stage, if that makes sense, if they lose Kyle Lowry. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I did make a mock draft. I know we didn't do a video. I only got 4 picks right: 1, 2, 3, and 5. I thought James Bouknight was going to go here. I feel like he helps in the future more as a scorer, maybe playing him at small forward along with OG and at shooting guard and Fred VanVleet at point guard, and then obviously trading Kyle Lowry. I mean, you're going to have Pascal start at power forward and then Chris Boucher start at center. So um, I would have liked to see that, but Scotty Barnes, very defensive. The Raptors are going to be a great defensive team this year, not only with Boucher, but also obviously OG and Anobi. And Pascal has been a good defender earlier in his career. We know that's how they won their championship. Marc Gasol, Serge Ibaka, both already guys who had been on all defensive teams, and obviously Kawhi, who I don't even have to mention how good he was on defense. But I think they're trying to rekindle that defensive mindset. As last year they were not that great of a defensive team, and I think that's why they took such a step back. Uh, but like you said, if they're going to trade Kyle Lowry, maybe they're going into a rebuilding phase, but they have the pieces to still make the playoffs in a weak Eastern Conference. So I wouldn't be surprised if they trade Lowry and maybe get some draft picks in the future and then still be able to get an 8 seed. We'll see what happens, though.
We will see. Now we move on to the fifth pick, where the Orlando Magic were probably really excited about this because they get a point guard in Jalen Suggs, and he's also been in some clutch moments, especially with that buzzer beater against UCLA in the Final Four. So he'll always be tied to that. But what do you think about his future with the Magic?
Yeah, like I said before, this is where I had Jalen going, but the NBA draft is very unpredictable once you get past the top couple, and that's why I didn't get any right after pick number 5. Like my draft was way off. Uh, but Jalen Suggs, he's an interesting choice. I know he was very highly rated, but I'm not too high on his NBA prospects because while he is a great leader, I don't know if he can do enough to be a leader in the locker room. It takes a very im- important player normally, unless you like a Udonis Haslam who just has that mantra about him to be a guy that the team rallies around. The Magic are not a great team, and they also have a inordinate amount of guards. We know they have Markelle Fultz. We know they have Cole Anthony. They obviously could re-sign Michael Carter Williams. There's a lot of guards on their team, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do with those guards in the future. And I probably would not have taken Jalen Suggs, even though I had them predicting taking him here. Because they have so many guards, I probably would have gone with a center because they traded Nikola Vucevic last season. Even though they have Wendell Carter Jr., I don't know if he is the future of the team. So, well, I think Jalen Suggs is a great player, and I do think he'll have a successful NBA career. I don't know if it necessarily helps out the Orlando Magic taking him, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, you mentioned the future and Wendell Carter Jr. If you're not sure about that, they're probably not sure, and this is what that season's about: rebuilding. And they have a young coach in Jamal Mosley, so they'll just see which guards develop. Hopefully, they hope for Fultz because he's still recovering, and then Suggs. But now we can move on to the sixth pick, where I'm pretty sure the Oklahoma City Thunder were pretty giddy about selecting Josh Giddey from Australia. He is 6'8", a 205-pound forward, and he played professionally in Australia. And a lot of people liked his vision, passing, and playmaking, but his defense needs more work. But that's probably what the Thunder will work on with him, just because they're a rebuilding team. What are your thoughts on this pick?
Yeah, this is definitely a long-term pick. We've seen Shy being auctioned off basically to other teams, and every other team saying no or not meeting the demands of the Thunder. Even though I think some of the picks could have been better. Uh, Now we know that Shy, I think, is going to be a great player in the future. And Josh Giddey, if you saw the draft report, basically said that he was just bad at everything, which doesn't make much sense to me, as he has been really successful in his pro career overseas. And so, while I do think he's a long-term prospect, somebody down the line, maybe 3 years, maybe like a Jokic, another guy who comes overseas and takes a while, I mean, Dirk took a good bit too. He was not that great his rookie season and grew slower, but also he wasn't a top pick like Luca was, a top 3 pick. So I think Giddy's good for the future of the Thunder. However, I don't know how good he's going to be this season. And I think multiple people will call him bust after this season ends because he isn't as good as many people saw, but it doesn't really mean that he's bad. Kobe didn't have a good rookie season either, so that doesn't mean that you're going to be a bad player if you necessarily have a bad rookie year.
Yeah, those are some excellent points, especially about Kobe and Dirk not doing well. There'll probably be some flashes, but no definite thing till year probably second year or third year. Now we move on to the seventh. Another team that I was interested, that I was surprised they stayed and they didn't trade, is the Golden State Warriors. Hopefully they have Clay back. You have Steph. You have Draymond. You also have Wiseman, and they select Kuminga, who is a good player. I've seen comparisons to Jaylen Brown of how Jaylen Brown has evolved into a much better player just from a 3-and-D player his first year. So there, a lot of people are saying that the Warriors should take that route with Kuminga. How do you agree with those or disagree?
It. I don't really like this pick. I don't know if I agree or disagree. I'm gonna have to see when the season starts how they use him and whether or not that's gonna work out. But Kuminga is a guy that I would not have risked. He's way too. He's a defensive player only right now. In the G League, he shot under 40% from the field, which is not good, and especially in the G League is not good. He was only drafted this high because of his prospects. People really think that he's going to be a great player in the future without seeing much proof in his pro career to this point. Um, I don't think he fits the plans of the Warriors. I think he takes way too long to get to his potential. That the Warriors probably move on from him. He's more of a James Wiseman type of guy. He's going to take longer to grow into the player they want him to be. I would have gone with either uh, Chris Duarte. I know this may be really high for him, but he is the oldest player, one of the older players in the draft, and taking him here I think would have been safer. Also, they could have taken James Bouknight, but I guess it didn't feel like that. Franz Wagner would also have been a quality pick. I just don't like taking Kuminga, who I think is way too raw of a prospect for the title hopes of the Warriors.
So you also mentioned Wiseman, how he's going to take longer. Do you think Kuminga and Wiseman are part of a bigger deal where the Warriors get maybe they do a sign and trade? Um, I'm thinking Raptors, but that wouldn't make sense to get another guard in Lowry. But a sign and trade or something to fit under the cap with Kuminga and Wiseman being the centerpieces to get a key player. Do you agree with that?
I could see that happening. If I were them, I'd probably pick up a power forward at the very least, and probably play him at center. I would make a move to get a guy that can shoot the ball, but is more of a defender. They need defensive bigs. We saw that with Andrew Bogut, who obviously was on the team in 2015. Um, we've seen guys like Kevin Looney have a defensive impact. They had Jordan Bell for that one run, and then so they just need a guy that's consistently going to be there defensively that has offensive upside. I don't know if they necessarily trade for a star player, but maybe they trade for a couple of guys that can be 6 men. Um, it's going to be interesting. I thought that they should have traded for Clint Capella last season, 2 seasons ago, back when the Rockets were shopping him. But obviously they didn't try to make that deal, and um, they may have to pay the price for it.
Yeah, I also wanted the Mavs to get Clint Capella when the Rockets were shopping around, but Hawks made that trade, and it's worked out for them so far. Now we go to number 8, where we have the Orlando Magic select Mo Wagner's brother, Franz Wagner from Michigan, where he averaged 12.5 points, 6.5 rebounds, and 3 assists per game as a sophomore. He also shot 34% from deep and was named second team All Big Ten. So Magic pick another player that they hope can help with their defense. And what do you think about him?
Yeah, so at this point, Wagner joins Wagner. The Magic obviously have his brother after Mo Wagner was traded to the Celtics and then released and then picked up by the Magic, so the brothers are going to be playing together. Francis Wagner obviously had struggles in the tournament against UCLA and shot like 1 for 10 and missed the game-winning shot and wasn't that great. But he's another guy that a lot of people see success in the future. He's proven overseas that he can be a great player, and in college he only uh, furthered his abilities there. I feel like he'll be a good player, but again, it's going to have to be a long time to grow him to become what he can, especially with the Magic. And I think that's why they took him. They had the time to rebuild and get their players to their full potential without much pressure from their fans. So I do think that that's what they're going to try to do with Franz.
Now we go to number 9, the Sacramento Kings, who haven't really been competitive. They haven't been close to a playoff spot. They weren't close last year just because of how competitive the West is. But they select Davion Mitchell from Baylor, who's just a great all around player, great guard. So possibly pairing up with De'Aaron Fox. Do you see that in his future?
Yeah, that's definitely possible. Um, they have way too many guards, and the fact that Davion Mitchell was drafted, I do think means that they trade De'Aaron Fox and Buddy Hield. Halliburton is a starter in the NBA. I think he was the best rookie last year, even though he didn't win Rookie of the Year. Um, he is a great player, and the fact that they got him at the pick they got him at was insane. I think that they make a move to get rid of De'Aaron Fox and Buddy Hield, maybe in a package deal to get a lot of draft picks and maybe some young prospects. But because I really do think that they should start Davion Mitchell off rip from the beginning, start him, and then have Tyrese start also, and then build around your young players that you drafted the past 2 seasons, and hopefully we'll have more success in De'Aaron and Buddy had uh, playoff wise in the league.
Wow. I didn't think of them trading De'Aaron Fox. I definitely thought of them trading Buddy Hield because of the interest from the Lakers. But that would be quite a trade. But given how competitive the West is, you should probably enter a rebuilding stage of somewhat. But I don't know who would go after Fox or people. I just can't think of a team right now that would give up the assets to get Fox.
Yeah, I definitely understand your point, but I think there's somebody out there, maybe the Knicks, maybe somebody that is getting their team back up to success, maybe a team that can take on the cap space, has a lot of cap space, would go for it. Um, I think there would be some potential suitors. I just don't know if he fits the plans, especially with his age. And I'm not saying he's old, but I am saying that by the time that the Sacramento Kings start getting back into their groove, I think having too many guards will hurt. And then getting rid of Fox and Hield and not starting anew because they've already drafted their guys, but starting from now would be the best for the future.
That is a good point you mentioned. I'd probably see maybe an Eastern team making that trade more than a Western team, but we'll see. Now we move on to the uh, 10th pick, where the Grizzlies, who got this pick from the Pelicans in the Valanciunas Adams Bledsoe trade, the Grizzlies select Zaire Williams from Stanford, a former 5-star recruit, but he is also a forward. So that's a great player as he's 6'8", and a lot of people covet that size. And he has the ability to put the ball on the court and stretch opposing defenses with his perimeter play. So Grizzlies stacking up on veterans and getting a young player like Zaire Williams. So maybe they could be a possibly sneaky team, sneaking into that West A spot or the play-in tournament, because it looks like that is coming back once again or for another year. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I don't necessarily love this pick, but I do like that they traded up. Um, I would probably would have gone with Boak Knight or Duarte or Kispert over Zaire Williams. I feel like Williams is going to take longer to get to his full potential. And the Grizzlies, I feel like, are a team that is on the rise. Obviously, they made the playoffs last year and won a game against the 1 seed. So I think the time is now for the Grizzlies, and if they can get, if they would have picked up Kispert, probably they would have had enough 3-point shooting along with Desmond Bain to probably have a good chance of getting a top 6 seed. But I don't think Zaire Williams fits that timeline. And while I do think he may be a good player in the league, um, again, I just don't know how he fits on this team.
Well, we talked about you mentioned Book Knight, and we talked about potential backcourt between De'Aaron Fox and Mitchell. How about this potential backcourt with LaMelo Ball and James Bouknight, who still needs to work on his three ball, but he has a good pull up jumper. And we saw a couple of guards who have a really good pull up jumper in the NBA Finals. What are your thoughts on this pick?
Yeah, so Bouknight is a great player. I had him going 4, like I said, falls to 11. I think Charlotte has won this draft for where they took him. Many people didn't see Bouknight dropping this far, and for him to fall all the way to 11, I do think really helps out Charlotte. I would probably trade now Cody Zeller, or not re-sign him, whatever the deal is with him, and then trade Gordon Hayward um, and build a young core where they start Ball, Bouknight, Bridges, Washington, and then trade for a center, a young center, and so that they could basically start all young players, and that'll help them in the future. As I think that'll be their core for a very, very long time. They would not have to make any moves besides getting bench pieces. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, you mentioned trading for a center, but young center. They did trade for Mason Plumlee, but he's 31, so it doesn't fit that criteria just yet. But it makes sense with them uh, possibly letting go of Cody Zeller in this offseason. And then we'll talk about another young center they selected. But I think now we can move on to the youngest player. Speaking of age, Joshua Primo from Alabama. And a lot of people were surprised with this pick. A lot of people had him pegged as a second rounder, but his stock started to rise at the NBA Combine. So maybe a potential project for Popovich to help, because people have talked about trading Deontay Murray. Am I correct? And they also have a young guard. I can't think of his name. Um,
Derek White,
no,
Lonnie Walker Jr.
Kipnis, or who am I thinking of? You give your thoughts, and I'll try to think who I'm thinking of.
Okay. Well, yeah, I had Joshua Primo going 28, and that just shows you what I know. I trust Greg Popovich. He's a great general manager and coach, and has won many championships. But Primo, I do think may be a little bit of a reach, but I'm not going to question them on it. He's been a great drafter. I do not think they trade Deontay Murray. I could see them trading Derek White, maybe Jakob Pertl if they can get a center out of it. But it's an interesting time for the Spurs, as I don't think they're all that bad. But even if they lose DeRozan, I don't think they're that bad. They just have to make the right moves this offseason to remain contenders for a playoff spot in the West.
I think I was thinking about Keldon Johnson.
Keldon Johnson plays small forward and power forward, but he's also a great
Yeah,
young player. I wouldn't. I don't think they trade him, and I don't think they trade Deontay Murray. Obviously, I don't think they're going to trade Primo, as they just drafted him and they see something in him that most people don't. So I'm excited to see what Greg Popovich can help him into the player he's going to be.
yeah, it's scary for the future, but you can't doubt Popovich. Now we go to the Pacers, where they select Chris Duarte from Oregon. Um, I'm He's older than most rookies, so maybe that's why Carlisle will play him. Or do you think he just sits on the bench?
I saw a lot of jokes about that, and I think that's pretty funny. Obviously, he has a history of not playing rookies unless they're Luca. So I don't know. We'll have to see. I do think Duarte would be a quality role player on this team if he is given the opportunity, and I do think he would have gone to the next pick. There was no way he was dropping to the Wizards, especially because the Warriors, like I said, need older players to to grow behind their uh, strong contending core. But yeah, I like this pick for the Pacers, and like I said, I think he'll be a quality role player for this team.
Now we're talking. Let's talk about the Warriors pick at number 14. They select Moses Moody from Arkansas, who's a great defender, and he probably fits more of their timeline than Kuminga. Do you agree with that?
Say again?
I think he fits the timeline of the Warriors. Maybe he can fill a bench role than Kuminga because Kuminga's still raw, as you mentioned.
Yeah, I still would have taken Kispert here. Moody should have gone top 10 in my mind. I had him going 9, I think. But still, Moody is going to take a while. Maybe not, definitely not as long as Kuminga because Moody's shown offensive upside in college and definitely is lacking on defense. But the Warriors have enough defenders on their team, including Kuminga, to help him out there. I could see him playing bench minutes while Kuminga, I think, would. Uh, I think they have to play Kuminga is the issue because if you're going to draft a guy at 7, I think you have to play him like somewhat. It's going to be interesting to see what the Warriors do with the situation, and because I don't necessarily agree with the route they took.
We'll see how it if they have another plan to do in the future. But now let's talk about Kispert, who's a premium shooter, and it's good adding more shooting with Beal and Bertans. But I'll let you talk more about how you feel about this pick.
Yeah, I love this pick. As a Wizards fan, I love this pick. Corey Kispert, obviously played with Rui Hachimura, who's one of the best rookies and not rookies, one of the best young players in the NBA in my mind. Rui's really accelerating into becoming a quality small forward slash power forward. I'm excited to see his future. Kispert, I also think will be really good, and this young core of Daniel Gafford, um, Deni Adviha, Rui Hachimura, and now Corey Kispert, I think will be dangerous in the coming years. And I because of the East and how not great it is, I still think the Wizards have a good chance of making the playoffs. They're obviously preparing for 2022 because that's when we lose all the contracts from Kyle Kuzma, KCP, and Montrezl Harrell. So with those guys, I think they can make a playoff push. But we're really preparing for the 2022 offseason and making sure that we pick up guys that will keep Beal in town as he said he wants to stay.
You beat me to it. I do agree with getting Kuzma, Pope, and Harrell, and getting off the contract of Westbrook and selecting Kispert. They could make. I definitely see them making the playoffs, and they can make some noise in the playoffs depending on if everything goes the right way. But now let's talk about the Houston Rockets, where they got this pick from the Oklahoma City Thunder. They select Alpera Sengun from Turkey, who was a standout in the Turkish Pro League and is 6'9", and was his Basketball Super League's MVP. And he models his league after Tim Duncan and Shaq O'Neal, as well as bigs Nikola Jokic and Joel Embiid. So that's very high comparisons. Rockets would be huge, would definitely love that. And he is shooting 63.2% from the field. So that's really nice. But a guy that they can develop as they are in the rebuilding stage. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so this pick's interesting. I don't think that he's the second best center in the draft, even though he was taken as one. Um, but he has a lot of potential, and I think the Rockets, especially with Jalen Green, will have time to develop him, and I like the pick because of that. And while I don't necessarily agree with taking him here, I don't necessarily have a problem with it either.
Now we move on to the 17. The New Orleans Pelicans select Trey Murphy. This is from the Memphis Grizzlies trade, as I mentioned before. And he's a great guard who became the only player in Cavaliers history to shoot 50% from the field, 40% on three-pointers, and 90% from the foul line. But he averaged just 11.3 points. But people are expecting them to flourish. And this is a good guard to pair with Williamson, who is still developing his outside shot on the three-pointer. So as he can drive and maybe kick it out, that could be a good thing. Kick it out Trey Murphy and have him hit it. That could be a good thing. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I don't know necessarily if Zion should be handling the ball as much as he does from the perimeter. I know he's a great driver, but I feel like him, uh, it kind of slows down the offense because we know he cannot shoot the 3-point line. I feel like running the offense through Brandon Ingram would be much more beneficial to this team. I like this pick. I think Trey Murphy will be a great shooter in the league and definitely will help the Pelicans out, but I still don't know if they make the playoffs this year because of how hard the West is.
Now we move on to another Western team, the Oklahoma City Thunder, where they selected Trey Mann from Florida. And he had 4 consecutive 20-plus point, which matched the longest streak by a Gator player, and that was over the past 25 years. That is Nick Calitz and Matt Walsh. So another player that has shown promise. And what are your thoughts on this pick?
Yeah, so this is another pick I like. Trey Mann is definitely a player who can shoot and play good defense. I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if OKC trades this away for another first round pick, as we saw them do so many times during this draft. So yeah, they have so many first round picks, but I like him, and I think that he'll stay with OKC if they deem him to be in their future plans. But that's yet to be seen.
Yeah, Sam Presti loves acquiring those picks, as even after the draft, he made a trade with the Rockets to get second rounders. But now I'm going to talk about a team that traded up back into the first round, which was the Charlotte Hornets. They got this pick from the New York Knicks. They select Kai Jones, a young center um, who is a better defender than offensive player. But given how Aiton has become much better offensively, and we saw that through the playoffs, Charlotte Hornets get the young center you were talking about earlier. What do you think about this?
Yeah. So another thing, I don't think Kai Jones. I think Kai Jones would be the young center that starts, and I think he should start this season after they don't bring back Cody Zeller, or at least play him off the bench, so that Kai Jones and crew can work it out. Maybe Cody Zeller starts the season, and then halfway through you get Kai Jones rolling. But yeah, I love this pick. I still don't think that he's the second best or third best center. We'll get to who I think it is in this draft, as he was almost fell out of the first round, and I'll tell you who won that pick. But I like Kai Jones. He's very high defensive upside, obviously out of Texas, and I think he could definitely be the center for the future for the Charlotte Hornets.
Now we move on to Atlanta Hawks, where they select Jalen Johnson from Duke, and he opted out, but he and only played 13 games for the Blue Devils. But he was third on the team in scoring, averaging 11.2 points per game and second at rebounding. But he did miss some time due to a foot injury. But what do you think about the Hawks pick?
Yeah, so the Hawks here, I like this pick. Jalen Johnson was somebody I really thought would go higher than this, and so taking him here, I definitely think helps him out. I don't know how much he helps in the short term, though. Obviously, they're a team that expects a lot out of them after making the Eastern Conference Finals last season. So I don't know how much they play him. They probably play him more in a Cam Reddish role where they don't play him as much. But I'd love to see what he can do to help out this team in the future, especially as they're probably looked at least contenders for the Eastern Conference title. Wouldn't you think so?
Yeah, given their role. But it's good that you mentioned the Cam Reddish role because from what I was hearing, the Hawks were trying to trade Cam Reddish for a future first round pick because they want to reset the timeline of paying people. They could be trying to find a good time in the free agency when they can go spend big money again. But so if they want to get rid of Cam Reddish, you mentioned Jalen Johnson possibly fulfilling that role. So that's probably what they had in mind when they made this pick. Now let's go to the LA Clippers pick, which was from the New York Knicks. They select Keon Johnson, a guy that can get to the rim and finish with explosive dunks and draws fouls. But he's also a great defender. So Clippers like to have that great defense, as they are probably going to lose Batum and or Serge Ibaka. So they get another great defensive big man to help fill those roles. What are your thoughts on this pick?
Yeah, so this is another pick I like. I cannot believe Keon Johnson fell this far. I had him going at 6. He's one of the best defensive players, if not the best defensive player in the draft. So I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up being a great player for the Clippers. And I don't know why the Knicks traded this pick, and I just took him with the defensive upside that their team has, and obviously with Tom Thibodeau being a defensive-oriented coach.
Now we move on to the Wizards pick, which they got from the LA Lakers trade. They selected Isaiah Jackson from Kentucky. He averaged 8.4 points and 6.6 rebounds in 25 games. What are your thoughts on this pick?
Yeah, I like this pick. I do think he can help out this season. especially because of like I said before, we're projecting out to 2022 free agency period, so we can pick up some guys and then start becoming a contender. So I think testing out Isaiah Jackson will be paramount to at least see what he can bring to the table. And yeah, I like what he can do, and I'm excited to see him in a Wizards jersey.
He also eighth. He also was ranked eighth nationally in block percentage, 12.7, and he had 8 blocks against the number 7 Kansas when they played. So that's another key part to his game. Now I'm gonna guess this is the best center, Usman Garuba from Real Madrid, Spain, that the Rockets selected. Am I correct or no?
No, Garuba I would have higher above the two guys that have been selected before. However, there's still Evan Mobley, so I'm not saying that any the player that we gotta get to. I don't think is better than Evan Mobley, but I do think he's the second best player in the draft. Garuba, I'd have it three. Garuba is great defensively. I don't know how he fell this far, and I thought the Mavs were going to trade up once they saw that him fall past the Knicks at 21. Obviously, they got traded to Clippers, but once it got past 21, I feel like everybody after that would be really open to trading. And Houston getting Garuba, Houston won this draft. They got their centers, they got their guard, Jalen Green, obviously, and they filled every need of their team. And I think they could be on the rise faster than many anticipated.
Yeah, it was a very solid draft. I'm a little disappointed with the Rockets getting better because I just liked him being that netherworld of mediocrity. But also disappointed that the Mavs didn't make some trades. More in the second round, but it's a new front office, so maybe they got a little bit late, even though oh my gosh, why am I forgetting it? Nico Harrison said he did draft. He's done work on the draft. But let's talk about the next Houston Rockets pick, which is Josh Christopher from Arizona State. He didn't have major national spotlight last season, as Arizona State didn't do well, but he averaged 14.3 points and 4.7 rebounds. What are your thoughts on this pick?
Yeah, again, Houston getting guys for the future. Josh Christopher is definitely a great player, and um, another guy I thought was going to go earlier. And Houston, like I said before, with the last pick, is going to be on the rise sooner than most people thought initially. So I like Josh Christopher. I love this pick, and I think Houston did a great job.
Speaking of Houston, the Knicks select Quentin Grimes, the star from Houston, the college. And I like this pick. He's a great defender and he's great at shooting threes. So now that can help with the Knicks as they struggled scoring, but they need a shot creator. But Quentin Grimes is a good pick as they are looking on the rise as well. What are your thoughts on this pick?
Yeah, 3-and-D guy, which is basically what he was with Houston, I do think will help out. As the Knicks weren't the greatest shooting team last year, and obviously with Julius Randle, Emmanuel quickly, and the core of the young players, they needed another shooter, and so I do think this addition helps them out.
Now we move on to the Denver Nuggets, who added Nashawn Bones Highland from VCU. A lot of people compared how the Nuggets select slow developers, as a lot of people think Bones Highland will be a slow developer. Jokic and Michael Porter Jr. are people that fell. Mostly more Michael Porter Jr. because of injury, but now they select Bones Highland. What are your thoughts on this pick?
Yeah, so I like this pick, but again, for the future, and I don't know if it's the best pick for the Nuggets, as they were definitely a team that I think are contenders right out of the gate next year. So I wouldn't be necessarily surprised if we see them make other moves before the season starts, but I think they'll keep Bones and develop him for the future. As if it does work out, I do think it'll be a great pick.
Now we move on to a team that didn't pick for the future but pick for now. They selected Cam Thomas from LSU, and that is the Brooklyn Nets. This could possibly replace Spencer Dinwiddie as he is a free agent this offseason. So, what are your thoughts on this pick?
Yeah, Cameron Thomas, I like this pick, but I don't know how much the Nets necessarily play them because they're a guy. He's a guy that I do think will also be a slow developer, but not too slow. Maybe 2 years down the line, he gets closer to what he will be in his prime. But Yeah, the Nets are definitely a contender this year, so I don't know necessarily how much they play him. So we'll
Y-
see what happens.
Yeah, I see him coming off of the bench mostly for the Nets. Now we move on to the Philadelphia 76ers, where they selected Jaden Springer from Tennessee, and he has the potential to become an effective two-way guard. What are your thoughts on this pick?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, defensive two-way guard, and that's really what the Sixers are built on. Obviously, they have Matisse Thybulle, who's a great defender. Ben Simmons, even though many hate on his offense, is a great defender. Joel Embiid has grown into being a great defender. Obviously, I don't know if Dwight Howard is going to stay, but Dwight Howard was a great defender last year for the Sixers and has been for the majority of their career. So the Sixers are really building a defensive team to their team, and that really makes sense when you have Doc Rivers as a coach.
Now we move on to the Brooklyn Nets pick again. They traded with the Phoenix Suns, and they selected uh, Daron Sharp from North Carolina. And what are your thoughts on this pick?
This is the second best center in the draft. Sharp is nimble, great defender, great rebounder, and I think in the future can develop a jump shot. He in college was a great ball handler for a center, and I think he'll be special. Now the fact that the Suns got him, or I mean the Nets got him, I think is good. They need a center. I don't know how much they're going to play DeAndre Ayton, and if I were them, I would start uh, Sharp right out of the season.
You mentioned Aiton, but it was the Nets pick.
Yeah, I don't
So
know why I said Aiton. I meant to say what's his name?
Jordan?
I'm yes, DeAndre Jordan, and obviously the other guy was Nicholas Claxton. That's who I was thinking of. Claxton's another guy that they didn't want to play for some reason, but I would start Daron Sharp out of the start of the season. They obviously didn't trust DeAndre Jordan during that playoff run. I think starting Sharp at the beginning of the season will prepare him for the playoffs.
And they did trade away a great defender in Jared Allen in the four-team trade you're talking about. So they're definitely hoping that he lives up to the hype and fulfills your prediction of him being the second best center in the draft. Now let's go to the final pick where Utah selects Salty Adama from Loyola, Maryland, and a lot of people are not sure if this is a draft and stash player, and he has some high upside. And the Utah Jazz hope maybe they lose a few guys this offseason, but he could be helpful in the future. What are your thoughts on this pick?
Yeah, Santiago Dama. I remember watching him during the tournament, his conference tournament. He was amazing. This is a guy that I definitely think will be a very quality player in his future. And he was a guy that I was afraid was going to drop into the second round. And obviously now he gets a guaranteed contract in the NBA because all first year contracts, not first year contracts, my bad, draft picks in the first round are guaranteed once they sign their contract. So you can't like if you release him, he gets all his money. So he's a great player. I wouldn't be surprised if he's better than a good bit of the players taken above him. And I do think Utah got the best player available at this pick.
That is like some good points. And then one notable team that we mentioned not trading up was the Mavericks. They actually did not have a pick in this draft because they traded the first round pick for Porzingis, and then the second rounder was for JJ Redick and Nicola Melli. Any more thoughts about this draft, Austin?
Yeah, I do think the Mavs could have traded up and got Sharp, or maybe even Jones if they traded up a lot. But I think they definitely could have picked up Sharp. And the fact that they didn't try worries me as somebody who at least cares about the Mavs. So while they are not my favorite team, I want to see the Mavs do good. And the fact that they did not trade up to get a quality center, who I think is the second best center in the draft, worries me as a Dallas quote unquote fan.
Well, if it scares you, then it definitely scares me. So yeah, I'm not sure about the coaching situation, but and then but a lot of people were high on Nico Harrison, but I would have liked because a lot they did trade away Richardson, so I would have liked to trade away Richardson and get a draft pick, but you did get Moses Brown. So that's why I was just thinking we would see Richardson get traded on draft night, but that didn't happen. But they did get Moses Brown. But thank you for listening, and make sure to check out our next episode which will be early predictions for the NFL, as training camp has already started for most teams, especially the Cowboys and the Packers. So we'll be giving our thoughts on how the teams will fare out this season. Thank you for listening to Outsiders Opinions.